Well, 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 what do we have here? A fully computer-generated anime series based on an incomplete manga by the creator of Blame, with a premise that is basically Attack on Titan in the far future. What could possibly go wrong? Let's analyze the previous elements one by one, shall we? Fully computer-generated. Major disadvantage. CGI sucks ass without a lot of time and effort put into it, something that isn't the case with Sidonia. It does make machines look cool and aliens creepy, which adds to the atmosphere of the series, but when it comes to character designs, it looks very off-putting. Unless you have an extreme tolerance to chop emotions and robot-like characters, you will drop this show like a hot potato. Based on an incomplete manga. Major disadvantage, you are left with no ending or an anime original one, which will contradict the manga and nobody will like. Sure, you can always wait a decade until enough material is out, but by then very few will care anymore and the difference in technology will be making it even harder to get into. By the creator of Blame. That sounds like a plus because he excels in mindfuck stories full of machinery and bizarre monsters, but in this case it works against him. This is a much more mainstream type of story full of anime stereotypes that take it one step away from thinking it's a light novel. The expectations are too high because of his fame and the final product is disappointing. A premise that is basically Attack on Titan in the far future. That sounds like it doesn't mean anything when in fact it does. Because of the undeserved praise Attack on Titan got, everybody and their wife who are now making shows with the same premise just to milk those addicted to shut and bad storytelling. Meaning this show is in effect a cash grab, made on a tight budget just to run to the casual oasis. Before shows like Black Bullet, Arpeggio of Blue Steel and Seraph of the End dry completely the money well. And yes, Sidonia began as a manga before AOT, but its adaptation came into being only because of its success. Well done, Sidonia, you already failed before you even began. But for the sake of argument, let's give it the benefit of doubt and assume everything I said so far are not enough to drive you away from enjoying it. It's still terrible, for the same reasons AOT is terrible. Shock factor! You know the drill, lots of gruesome deaths destroying the characterization of its cast. It doesn't give them depth, nor does the story become more serious. Wasn't a Kamega kill enough to realize that? It doesn't help how most characters look the same and move like robots. When they die, it's like they get deactivated and replaced by other robots. Also, none of them get enough screen time to feel important enough in the plot, so you don't give a shit when they die. Lack of focus. As for those who survive and live to fight another day, they don't get much fleshing out, because the audience is either too busy staring at the creepy aliens, making bets about who is going to die next, or doesn't give a crap about their personalities because the whole show is an edgy comedy. Wish fulfillment. For a show that is supposed to be about humanity trying to survive against alien monstrosities, you constantly get fan service moments which break the immersion. There isn't that much of it, but it is more than enough to not take the show seriously. The protagonist feels like he was transferred there from a harem. Weak, passive, constantly bumps on naked women and feels like he is incompetent in everything. But as soon as things get serious, he will be a super pilot who will be single-handedly wiping out aliens that not even elite groups could scratch. And then he will be cheered by everybody and all the girls will be after his D before reverting to his useless mode and keeps bumping on naked women. All this pandering makes him look like yet another Jesus for introverts. Creepy factor. And it's not good fan service either. You can't even enjoy it as guilty pleasure because the characters look like robots. Also, it has some really deviant fetishes that are too gross to even count as sexy. One of the chicks who wants the protagonist's D is a hermaphrodite with cyborg arms, and another chick is an alien freak which can't even speak properly. Unused concepts. There are lots of interesting sci-fi concepts that either don't fit in the setting or are not used in any good way plot-wise. There is a bear woman with a hook arm that is supposed to be some sort of genetic hybrid. That's so out there, it is never explained, never used in any way, and it belongs to a school comedy. There are people who photosynthesize instead of eating, as well as hermaphrodites. Again, part of the genetic engineering going on in the future. Those are not relevant to the plot and are used only for silly comedy and deviant fetishes. Weak mystery. Not even what the aliens are or what they want means anything in the long run, since just like in AOT, the show deliberately never explains their motives as means to keep them scary by being a mystery and not a faction with an agenda or characters with personality. And since by now we all know it is always some variation of Soylent Green, you might as well not give a damn about them. Bad storytelling. The show has no idea of how to surprise you without insulting your intelligence. There is a scene where a guy gives the protagonist an inappropriate inappropriate command, just to fail and be accused of being useless. Everybody indeed accuses the protagonist and doesn't even attempt to verify what exactly happened, even when the whole thing was recorded in the robot he pilots. There is another scene where the protagonist bumps on a secret facility by complete chance, and it turns out he's already chosen as a test pilot there, making all the time spent on the accidental discovery pointless. No objective. The whole show is aimless, since the motives of the aliens are never explained, and all the humans are doing is surviving alien attacks. It is a very passive goal that never fixes the problem and gets dull very fast if all you get is aliens attack, humans fend them off. Aliens attack, humans fend them off. And the worst part is that this formula can never change, because it will mean the death of everybody and the end of the show. Thus, once again, you get a good premise that is ruined by bad handling, and I do not recommend it, unless you are one of those people who think that constantly killing robots we don't know or care about is a stroke of brilliance. How about simply watching that wonderful music video clip by Muse, which happens to share the same name? It doesn't have a pitiful CGI, and it actually has a cool space western vibe to it. Also is retro, so it's better. Although a step above moe and fanservice that have ruined the image of the medium, it is still victim to several problems that plague modern anime, and which, of course, very few viewers even seem to notice. This reviewer, for example, calls the show character-driven, when it isn't. The characters do not drive the plot, they are only reacting to it. The plot is essentially monsters attack, and they blast off to defend the ship. That's it, there is nothing more to it. They're not aiming to gain more, they are only trying not to lose what they are left with. Survival is their only concern, which by definition is as passive as it gets. He does though admit that a lot of tension is ruined by the relaxation moments, which take place between the battles. Which is the issue a different reviewer considers a plus, because it eases the mood with harem comedy. He claims that if they were serious all the time, the show would be boring, but this way the characters feel more relatable and make you care. Well, this is actually a double-edged sword, because those very harem nonsense are what ruin the atmosphere it is going for. And here is a contradiction by the same reviewer. The CGI used in the show was not that good, but it was definitely making the show look gritty and depressing. Thus, the comedy is not adding anything, but rather takes away. Especially when the characters are CGI themselves. They look too mechanical to be funny or sexy. He's contradicting himself by saying the comedy was important. I mean, sure, making mistakes or having personality quirks is indeed making the characters feel more humane, but not when you present such traits as comical. Here is another classic mistake most casuals do. This one claims the show doesn't have fan service and it is not about empowerment fantasy like most modern anime are. Aside from the fact that there is in fact fan service in several scenes, all the grittiness it claims to be what makes it so good is in fact shut the door! And yet another form of fan service, that of the sadistic pleasure you get out of watching senseless violence and pointless deaths, all in the name of entertainment. And let's face it, the protagonist in this show is teen empowerment to the max. He is an incompetent beta male in peaceful moments, but during battles he turns to Jesus and has all the chicks, hermaphrodites included, to want the D. Another classic mistake is how he thinks the show has great exposition for doing a lot of showing and not telling. Although the characters are indeed not explaining every single thing they're doing, even if it's bloody obvious, they are still doing it to a lesser degree. Especially during the battle scenes, where they need to address to the viewer what just happened, in case the CGI was too crappy to get it, or because the techno-bubbling was too much to understand. He also confuses the mystery aspect of the series to be in fact show don't tell. Just because they don't explain what the hell is going on with the whole alien invasion doesn't mean they're showing it, because as it turns out they don't. They keep secrets from the viewer so he will be kept interested. It is a gimmick, not brilliance in storytelling. Yet another mistake is how many think death is significant in the show since it affects emotionally the characters. I'm sorry, but I find very little significance when we see them feeling sad for a few minutes and then completely forgetting the whole thing. There is a scene where the ship did a sudden rotation which killed hundreds of people. Don't tell me that they even remember or care about that event 2 episodes after it happened. Or don't tell me anyone even cares about the nameless pilots who keep getting killed in every battle. They just clone a new batch and call it a day. And the final nail to the coffin is the bold claim that this show makes you think. It is mature and realistic and all that shit. Well, sorry to bust your bubble, but every show in existence can make people think. Do I need to redirect you to the oceans of text written about the power levels and the speculations in Naruto? Is that mature and realistic because it makes millions of kids think? He claims it makes other shows look childish. What other shows are you talking about exactly? Serial Experiments Lane is childish? Those are some bold claims for someone who has these titles as his favorites. He even claims the show respected him. Why? Because it had fun service and senseless killing? I sure didn't feel any respect. Something like Ping Pong has more maturity and respect, and I didn't even care about that show. Sure, it has lots of interesting ideas, such as asexual reproduction, photosynthesis as a source of food, animal hybrids for higher chances of survival in harsh environments. The themes are there, but are they explored? No, they're used for comedy and fan service, which ruins the whole purpose of having them. And there you have it, a show that is not pure garbage, but is also far from a masterpiece. So stop pretending it is anything more than that just because you only watched Pokemon.